Good evening, Warriors, and welcome into another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, Robert Hagan. And Hagan, we're a couple days removed from the Golden Throne, and I only have one question for you. Can you hear yet?
Listen, it was loud as it always is, even with the numbers down a little bit. We were just talking pre-show a few minutes ago. You asked me, you were running stuff for the river, for the Lewiston side. You asked me something, and I couldn't literally hear you. And my comment to the people on the radio was hi. That was
Yeah. Trying to
it
get a
was just so
special
loud.
update from the PA announcer at the Golden Throne to update the people on the radio about a certain situation that was happening off of the basketball court.
Right
And I
behind me.
give the headsets to Hagan, and he just goes, "Hi." You're a radio guy yourself. What is this? But it was crazy. We will get all into that. A lot of Golden Throne thoughts as we go on. I just want to make a quick mention, and a lot of it is because of the fantastic Denny Grubb interview. I don't even, was it even an interview last week? A discussion with Denny Grubb that went an hour last week. But a big shout out to Denny and his following for pushing us over 560 Facebook follows. We got like 5 or 6 of them all just last week. So we're growing more and more each and every week. And I thank all of you for hanging out with us now every Monday here for, well, I guess this is the last day of January, but for the month of February, as basketball starts wrapping up and everyone is playing on Tuesday, and it's just not feasible for us to go. But if you are listening to us on KLCZ, that means that the recording worked. And because the plan is we're recording this Monday night. We're gonna download the audio and then send it off to KLCZ, and they will post this on our regular time on KLCZ 88.9 FM and KLCZ.com. So hopefully that all worked out. And if you're listening to us on Tuesday, then technology worked better for us this week than last week. What else we got? Just a lot going on. So let's just get right into it. And we were talking about it, Golden Throne. So we got to bring on some special guests because Robert and I will get into our own personal experiences with the Golden Throne. But Robert, we got some fun guests for tonight.
Yeah, it's an honor to have these guys on. As it starts all at the high school, exactly what is happening and bringing in. And we're going to bring in Clarkston High School principal Doug Lemunion, Lewiston High School principal Kevin Driscoll joining us in tonight's studio.
Let's
Guys,
hold on. Let me get you on the correct side.
Yeah.
There we go. There we go.
Get him over on the red side. That's where Doug needs to be. We were giving Kevin a bad time a second ago. He found some red, and he put some red in his life. He's got that red brick behind him. Great placement, sir.
Well, it looks like a school building, Hagan.
Okay, so I told Kevin before the show that I was going to flip him crap on the show, and then Lemunion comes on, and he's the exact opposite. There are ways you could tell people's age here in the COVID era, and it's how they do a Zoom. One of them uses a fake background when he doesn't have a green screen, so every time he moves, it freaks out. And the other one just uses their phone and cares not about his display. He's just going to make it work. We have both examples here on the R&R Sports Report, and I love all of it.
Oh, hey guys, this is first Golden Throne since 2020. How do you feel it went? Well, Doug, we'll start with you. How do you feel things went for this year's Golden Throne?
I really think better than expected. And again, some of the kids that were in those gyms have never been to a Golden Throne before. As far as the distractions outside of the basketball court and possible things that could have went wrong, I don't recall of any like we've had to deal with in the past. And I just think it was amazing. It was just nice. Even though we had masks on, you could still see kids smile. You could still see laughter. You could just even the kids interacting across the gym from Lewiston to Clarkston, it was just a pleasure. I can't say enough about it. As an administrator, you're always worried about a huge event like that. If you can just visualize everything possibly going wrong. And I'm telling you, I think everything went right. I mean, it just was great competition, great schools. LHS ASB did a fantastic job working with our kids. LCSC really did a nice job with the facility, and just couldn't be happier.
Kevin, what did you think of it?
Well, I can echo all the sentiments with Doug. I mean, you throw in the last year and a half or so, and you've got Clarkson 1 mile across the river with their protocols. Our protocols are a lot more lessened than what Doug and Shannon they have to deal with over there. And then you've got LC with their own protocols, and we're all trying to live in the same world. And the one thing that we stress to our parents is the protocols are tighter at LC State than they are at Lewiston High School, but we're in LC State's house. And whether LC State made those rules or not, sometimes Doug and I get the opportunity to enforce rules that we didn't create.
Yeah.
So, our kids were really good right up until the end. There was a picture where right after the winner of the throne was announced, and our kids are going crazy. And I don't think the mask usage was very good, but I don't think that was very indicative of the night as a whole. And, Robert, you got on there, our kids got on there. We put mass communication out as far as the mandates that we had to live by. And I would agree with Doug. I think it went really, really well. This is so many people. Mike Frederico from the IHSAA actually came up, and I think that's a huge tribute to what everybody's done here in the Valley with the Golden Throne. And they wanted to see what we do because we're so successful up here. And I know that's the Idaho, sanctioning board, but I think that goes with both schools and just everybody in the Valley. And what a cool event it is for the Valley.
And you brought up, a lot of students, this was their first time experiencing the Golden Throne. I got a fun experience calling the game, and I had a few of the LCSC volleyball team just trying to find any place to sit, and they ended up sitting on my road just because that was one of the few empty spaces. And I leaned in and was giving them a little bit of crap. I'm like, why can't we get an audience like this for one of your games? And they're like, yeah, right. So it's just even LC athletes wanted to be a part of the Golden Throne because LC basketball and baseball are very popular here in the Valley, but even they do not pull out crowds like that ever. So they even wanted to be a part of it. And that was the thing that I was most surprised by was, especially looking at the Clarkston side, having that year off, there was 0 Clarkston boys basketball members had played in a Golden Throne before, or at least seen the floor. Yeah. And I thought all of the kids, lived up to the expectations. I do think the referees were very set on it being a physical game and wanted to kibosh that quickly. And we had ridiculous foul troubles for both teams in both games. But I thought that the kids came out to play for having very little Golden Throne experience.
I would agree with that, Randy. I mean, we talked about it all week that our seniors were the only kids that have lived as a high schooler through a Golden Throne. Mm-hmm. And I guess for the Valley as a whole, it was kind of nice because each team won a game, and then the Throne's probably the most important thing to those kids. But what's the most important thing is what I really enjoyed is watching our ASB kids work in conjunction with the Clarkston ASB kids. And what I told Mike Federico when he came up, I said, it's too bad you couldn't be here when they actually do the check ceremonies, when those charities come in and our students get to present them with with the actual money for their charities. And one of the things that Mike really stressed is he could not believe how student led this was. And Doug and I are both in the business of preparing kids to graduate and walk out the front doors of our school and be prepared for life beyond high school. And I think this is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, Kevin, you bring up a good point. Lemonian, I'll ask you basically something that he went off of, and we can get both of your opinions. But obviously, Robert and I and most people got to see, day of Golden Throne and all of the excitement around the basketball game and how much money was raised. What was it like the week building up and all the money raised throughout the week, and what kind of activities happened at the schools, and how did the kids react to everything?
Well, and I think the benefit is really unseen is that good leaders like Kevin and I is my kids tell me what to do. My ASB kids direct the activities. They say, Mr. O'Munion, we need you to do this. We need you to do this. And so a lot of the activities are dress up days like homecoming. We had a real good day called Anything But Your Backpack. So we had kids bringing wheelbarrows and coolers, and someone brought a shop vac with his books in the shop vac and wheeled it around the hallways. And I mean, that was one of those most creative ones I've had. But there's dress up days, there's spirit, there's a heck of an assembly the day before. We were selling spirit links. Our leadership class was outside collecting donations in kind of a drive-through arena at the Clarkson High School. You know, just kind of the media package of getting it out there in social media, communicating to kids and to advisories, to saying what we're doing, how we're doing to get there, the selling of the shirts, making sure that kids that maybe can't afford it are given an opportunity to come to those games, and given those opportunities and reaching out to those folks and those families and making sure they're taken care of. And it's pretty detailed. And those kids, I think they've been working since December, if not sooner, setting the theme, doing the things they need to do, and telling us what to do. And once that Monday starts, though, it's nonstop buzz about it. And it was for us, it was just pleasurable to get back to some kind of a norm, even with masks on. We knew it was going to happen. It was exciting. And we can talk about district tournament, state tournament. I always find that's more important personally, but to the kids, it's about the throne. It's about the Golden Throne, and it's about just a great athletic environment. And just to add with Kevin is that I think that the uniqueness of the Golden Throne is the sportsmanship. I think that's what high school athletics should be about. There should be less complaining about the officiating, although I might have muttered a few things. There's not less derogatory comments out. You don't see fans calling out fans. You don't see fans calling out players. You know, it's Lewiston kids saying, way to go Clarkson. And it's Clarkson kids saying, way to go Lewiston. And we're cheering for each other's drill teams. We're cheering for each other's cheerleaders. We're dancing. I mean, it's just what high school athletics should be about. And the kids bring it together, but it's nonstop all week long. And it's just a lot of fun.
Kevin, what did we not see that happened over there at LHS?
Oh, much of the same things. I mean, I can tell you that Thursday night, our kids are constantly, they go to Terry Ann and Shanda, our two office ladies, and, you know, it's nonstop. I mean, they're collecting change. They're doing things all the time. And Thursday night, there was a bit of a panic because our financial numbers to the charities were not where they thought they were going to be. Part of that was because of some t-shirt sponsorship and things that they didn't realize because they'd never been through it. And that's where, you know, I went and talked to 3 of our ASB students. I grabbed 2 of them Friday night after the game, and then I grabbed the 3rd one because I couldn't find her at the ball game. And I was so proud of what they did. They went out Thursday night and went to some businesses and said, hey, we're not to where we want to be or what our goals were going to be to help these charities out. And I couldn't believe how people in this community just rallied around it. And, you know, we went from being barely in the black on Thursday night to making, you know, $18,000 by 24-hour span just because this community, and we're talking about Golden Throne, but our community's that way in anything that happens. I mean, You look at the Jackson Baldwin, one of our charities. I mean, look how people turn out for it, and so many other events that we have, charitable events in this town. So to watch our kids learn and understand what that means to be given back, it's a pretty incredible experience as a principal.
You talked a little bit about the Jackson Baldwin Foundation. Let's dive into the rest of the charities that hit home this year. Again, United Way, another one that we have donated to before, suicide prevention. But I think the one that got the most notice, and just from me, and it dives back into our community, the kids, and they love their people that teach them, their educators. And that went to the Sabota family. As we know, Coach Debbie Sabota going through cancer and all that. Doug, how did that come about with some of these students? I know just in a little bit of hearsay, it was a huge part to have them part of the community idea.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, it was pretty hush hush what was going on with Debbie. I'm pretty close with them, and we knew a little bit about what was going on. And I think Debbie's such a proud person that didn't want it to get out and didn't want it to affect the kids negatively. And the kids found out, and I was shocked that they were selected as one of the charities, very deservingly so. But I didn't know the kids knew, to be honest with you, and it was just an instant reaction. It's very emotional for me too.
Yeah, each of the charities are taking over well, we raised over 18,000, like you were saying, Kevin.
Yep.
Each charity is going to get roughly $4,600. You know, what our community does is just a huge asset. And how many charities did we have sign up for, for this?
Well, and just a shout out too. I'm a board member for the United Way, so I volunteer my time as part of the United Way group, and we really want to say thank you for doing that, because we'll use that money wisely as we go through our mission of trying to impact education in the Valley, in Lapway, Soton, Wilson, and Clarkson as well. But the total amount of charities, I personally don't know how to look at. My SB advisor runs that. I try to stay out of that. Especially being a board member of the United Way, I didn't want to influence anything one way or the other. So I don't know how the total was, but it's a pretty big process to go through it, and they take it very personal, and the kids take it with a lot of integrity and character to make those decisions.
And I want to chime one more thing in with that. And, we talked a lot about these kids giving back, and we had a couple of guests on the show last week that talked about their rivalry game and how it's grown. And now you go to different places and they talk about the Golden Throne. They talk about, and I had the opportunity to go up to Prairie 2 years ago and do the game from Prairie and Grangeville, and they do the same kind of thing. They also do with the food bank. I mean, where do you see Golden Throne going maybe in the next 5 years, Kevin? We'll ask you both, but Kevin, where do you think Golden Throne goes in the next 5 years to 10 years?
I don't know. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I mean, I don't think we can. I'd be a little remiss because I've only been part of this for 10, 11 years now. I mean, I went as a fan when I was a teacher and coach out of Kendrick, but, Kay Anderson, Jim Silvestri, some of those advisors that worked so hard on this, look what it's become. I mean, my first couple times as a fan going to that game was back when Lewiston hosted, then Clarkson hosted, and Fire Marshal started shutting things down. I mean, do we really want to get to that point? I mean, we didn't know how it was going to be Friday night with the layoff and COVID and, the mandates and everything else. And there was a few empty seats, but that's surprising because we were getting to the point where what are we going to do? I mean, the first 35 in, and then we're going to start shutting people out. I mean, that's what happened in the old days. Then they built the activity center, and obviously we have such a great relationship with LCSC, and it holds 1,500 more than our new gym, and I don't know if we can get any bigger. And to be quite honest with you, how are we going to make it any bigger? As far as fan attendance in the game.
Yeah. So I think the Golden Throne should be in Clarkson. I mean, the throne itself, the next 5 years, if you want my honest opinion.
We shared it last year, Lavanya.
I think it should be that way. I think it's just got to be maintaining the high standards that we've already set. And like Kevin said, they set the standard of how you're supposed to run Golden Throne. And I think it should be our responsibility to maintain those standards and continue to make this about sportsmanship and about charities and about, competition in the truest sense of it, and not in a negative sense that you see competitions every so often in high school and in college and pro athletics. And I think we just maintain that. We maintain our valley and our relationships and take care of our own, and the people that can give to help those that cannot. And we're one community. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know we're two states and I know we're two high schools, but man, we have so many kids in our school that are friends with Kevin's kids, and Kevin and I are friends. I think it's a different era than it was 15, 20 years ago, let's say, of maybe the rivalry. There's the rivalry still there, but it's a different style of rivalry. It really is. Social media has brought in families and kids so close together, but I think we just maintain that standard. We maintain that classiness. We maintain our relationships with LCSC so people see what a great college that is, and help them with their enrollment and the things that they need as they share with our kids, and people and parents see what's going on. And I think that's where I see it. I agree with Kevin. I don't see how you could possibly make it bigger. I mean, and unless our community's population gets a lot bigger. But I think we maintain the standards. We do what's best. We raise money for charity and just be very proud of our kids and what we've accomplished.
Yeah, the one thing that's been stated a few times is just the competition is not the right word, but just how great both sides were to each other. And it was, I mean, obviously, anytime we had any of the halftime shows, the Lewiston students or the Clarkson students, whichever side was out there, were supporting each act and having a great time. But I just wanted to give a shout out to the two cheer teams.
Yeah.
Because again, nobody was really evil to each other. It was not like back when I went to school where it was, we're trying to say the worst things possible to the other student section and be super loud. It was just the student section were just, I can be louder than you. And that was the best part. But the cheer teams, it wasn't just, okay, we're going to support them and we'll stand there and we'll applaud or whatever. Both teams, Lewiston and Clarkson, when they were not performing, were as close to the mat as possible. And I had more fun watching the ladies that were not performing at the time, just to see how intense they were focused and wanting them to work. And the moment something worked, like their performance was great, you could just see it's like, yes, they nailed it. And it was just, that was possibly my favorite point of the entire night, was just again that support that both schools had. No, It was never bigger than those two cheer competitions.
Yeah, and some of my favorite parts was the music guy did a phenomenal job, but just the kids singing together. And then in the fourth quarter of the boys' game, whether you notice this or not, the two sets of cheerleaders did the same cheer at the exact same time, and both sets of crowds did the exact same cheer, and not necessarily cheering for one team, but they were all doing the same moves, the same dance, the same look at the exact same time. And I don't know if they planned or not, but I thought that was really cool too.
And all of that honestly built up to neither game was particularly close as far as score goes, but especially in the boys' game, as everything has been building up, and now you're getting closer to who's going to win the Golden Throne, and we've had all these different events, and the crowd's getting louder and louder, and like you said, LeMunyon, the music guy would turn off the music, and the crowd would sing the next verse of the song every time, and I loved it every time.
Yeah.
But it just felt like we're in the fourth quarter of the boys' game. It's a 10-point game. It's not gotten closer to 8 in the entire second half. And it felt like we were in triple overtime, or we were watching any of these NFL games the last 2 weeks with how intense everything felt. I'm sitting there calling the game going, well, Lewiston's cut the lead to 14, while the crowds are acting like we've tied the game back. It's such an amazing atmosphere that has been built between these two schools and this event.
I would concur. I got to experience it as an official before I came to Clarkson. I got to ref in it. And I've been fortunate enough to ref some state tournaments in my time, and without hesitation, the greatest environment. And both games at that moment were 20, 22-point games, but there's no way you would have known it. And it's just a pleasure. And the kids are sportsmanlike, the fans are sportsmanlike, and it's just a pleasure to be a part of this.
Kevin, what are your final thoughts on this year's Golden Throne?
It's over. I mean, there's so much build up. There's so much build up to it, and then like Doug said earlier, you try to plan for everything that could happen. And quite honestly, this might have been the smoothest one that we've had in a long time, as far as conduct within the gym and things that we have to do with kind of behind the scenes. We really didn't deal with much of that, if at all, any. And I do want to go back to the cheerleaders, though, and some of the cool things that both sides did. First of all, how talented are those two groups of kids? I mean, first of all, it's about 2 basketball games and all the charities, but our cheerleaders get out there and do that. State of Idaho moved state cheer up 2 weeks, which also moved districts up. Our girls got on the bus at 7 a.m. and traveled way up north of District 1 to compete in their district tournament. It wasn't the most ideal scheduling, but it was what it was, as far as we have Golden Throne and then our district cheer the next day. But our kids, like always, went up there and represented and took 3 out of 4 firsts up there. But I know that there was a little bit of panic by our cheer coaching squad. But those kids, I know it's about basketball. Everybody looks at it as basketball and the charities, but those cheerleaders on both sides of the river are very talented. And they probably work as hard or harder than most of ours. They start in August.
Yeah.
And they go until they're state competitions in March. I mean, it's not like they go from football to basketball or, whatever sports, and they're one thing from August all the way until the spring. So, and you can see that there was a lot of talent flying around that gym that night.
Flying is correct.
Yes. It's a little scary.
Yes, it is.
Well, guys, we appreciate you coming on tonight and giving your analysis of how things went. We appreciate all the hard work you two put into that. And like you said, Doug and Kevin, both of you said, it is about the ASB taking over and running it, and it couldn't have been more smooth. And so we do appreciate time, sharing your thoughts, and hope to get you on a little bit more. We could talk a little bit more basketball, maybe state. I mean, we got baseball coming up pretty soon too.
Sounds good. I appreciate you guys covering all of our kids too in the Valley, for sure.
Yep. There we have fun.
Yeah.
All right. That is Doug Lemunion, Clarkson High School.
Thanks,
and Driscoll's like, I'm out.
He's done. He's got a lot going on. We got senior night for Lewiston tomorrow for the girls' side. There's lots going on.
We've got senior night tomorrow night too, and we also have a time change on both ball games. So got hit with that this afternoon at 3:30. So
yeah, we'll have to break that down. So obviously we got their thoughts. We've sprinkled our thoughts in as well. And you and I have been lucky enough to cover a couple Golden Thrones over the last few years, whether it's on radio or you doing PA. Just overall thoughts on the event on Friday.
Listen, I was more excited to see the community back there. I was a little worried at the very beginning that there wasn't near as many people there, but give it an hour or two, it kind of grew in because they opened the doors a little after 5, and so by about 6:15, it was getting to the numbers where we thought it would be, and it was great to see the community and come in and supporting them. I had a couple of kids ask me today. He's just like, were you nervous? I'm like, this was my 6th Golden Throne announcing. And, we all make little mistakes. And my big one, and I laughed about it, and I had to go and talk to Conrad. But, Colton graduated a couple of years ago, and I just looked across the gymnasium and saw Colton sitting next to his mom. I was like, Colton's here, ha, 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 and then Conrad checks back in, and I call him Colton instead of Conrad. And I was like, oh my God.
I did the same thing on the radio. I only did it once, and I kicked myself for it. It was I called Kendall Wallace Ashlyn Wallace one time. I was like, I'm going to do my best, but I've called so many Ashlyn Wallace games back when I was calling Clarkson and seeing Kendall out there, and just one time she made a pass, and Ashlyn Wallace Kendall. So, yeah, it was crazy. I had so much fun. I have zero idea if anybody could hear me the entire time or not, because unfortunately, with the way the cord situation was set up, I was 5 feet away from the Lewiston student section, so they were very loud. And I had some very interesting characters behind me who definitely hated the referees for sure. They were very Lewiston biased. And I didn't hate what the referees were doing. Yeah, I think they were into the moment as well. But man, foul trouble was a huge storyline for both of those games.
Yeah, especially the fourth quarter of that boys game. It got very chippy there towards the end. But, I think they weren't letting them play as physical there in the fourth as they did in the first. So it was kind of cool. But, I think for me was seeing the community members. And it wasn't just, like we've been talking before, Clarkson travels quite well. Whether or not they have kids in the program or not, there are people in there that are watching the game. They come to the game and just partake, for a good example, you look who was sitting next to you there for a while as Kenzie was sitting there with you, those Lewiston volleyball girls sitting there, LC girls sitting there having a good time with you, to the point of, people do it, being there. So
yeah, 109 free throws in the 2 games, as Taco says. There was a lot, and honestly, I felt like there could be even more. And it's just if the games were a little closer and teams started fouling and stuff. The one positive of the 2 games kind of being a little bit spread out as far as score wise was both teams were able to empty the benches late in the game and get everyone out there just to be able to experience that hype. And of course, the crowd, which never slowed down, never quieted down, giving those kids
they did as
that
they were
support
waiting
as well.
Yeah, they did a little bit as they were waiting for me. Did it feel like I kind of drew it out a little bit?
Drug it out so bad. So I got to tell this story too. So I messaged Robert, and of course he doesn't look at his phone for 20 minutes.
I
finally get his attention
on the game.
Yeah, but I asked him, how long are you waiting after the boys' game to announce the Golden Throne? And he gives me a 30 seconds. I'm like, all right, so I'll keep it live, and we'll go. Unfortunately, Jamin did not see said note, and he went to commercial. And Robert, as a radio guy, was nice and held out from doing all of his stuff until radio was back. But I didn't realize we're going to have 10 minutes worth of, obviously, I mean, we had to get through the totals of the fundraisers and stuff. And I didn't realize I should have looked at your script of having them all come out, and then we had to check things. So we could have just went to break before that and then caught everybody up. But then I'm sitting there, okay, we got through that, and I'm able to go through some of my in-game stats, and we've gone through everything. It's like, all right, and now the winner of the Golden Throne, and it took you an hour. It took so long. But I just have to ask, Clarkson Bantam is yourself. How wonderful was it to say the words Lewiston Bengals at the end?
Listen, I've said it a couple of times, but I never know. I honestly never know who the judges are. All I know is when Shannon or Corey Williams comes down and gives me numbers or anything like that. So I never know who the people are involved with. But shout out to Kay Anderson. She used to do all the stuff that dealt with Golden Throne. And so she would get those people, and which she would come down and tell me and all that. But it's hard to do that. Denny, go Bengals. But at one point, it's, and I don't mean it to think about looking at, but I felt like almost 3,600 pair of eyes were on me waiting to
they were.
And I felt, and it's just like, okay, my kind of clammy. Yeah. But it's
make the fans happy, sir.
No. Can't do it. Can't do it. That's why I decided even tonight I was wearing Golden Throne, my red and black. But
I don't have a single Golden Throne shirt. I have like 3 or 4 Bengal shirts. I don't have a Golden Throne one yet. So Driscoll's gonna get you one. I gotta get one myself.
No, I buy my own every year.
I just never even think about it. I always forget that that's part of the deal. I did buy a Bengal Blast on Golden Throne Friday from Hot Shots. I needed it. I knew I was going to need that energy going into that and trying to keep up with those kids. And again, it was stated by both principals. I thought both student sections were very, very respectful. I never heard a single word muttered like negatively towards the other side. It was all in good fun, and it was basically, like we said, it was just trying to see who was louder than the other, and the amount of chants that were worked on between the two schools, and they went back and forth and had some fun. And yes, I heard some parents behind me upset at the refs, but it was never towards the other team. And I like they both said, I thought it went extremely smoothly. I was very curious how it was going to be like after missing a year, and we're still dealing with the pandemic stuff and the mask rules. And I thought it all went really smoothly. And if it didn't, it all happened behind me, and I have no idea. So,
yeah,
but
that's the thing.
Even the fact we had a fan in the stands have a diabetic issue, and not only refused to, go with the medical staff and leave, he sat back down and watched the rest of the game. That's how much people very much enjoy the Golden Throne. It's very important, and we need that with more sports, I think. I mean, I'm very excited that baseball this year gets to have one game between Lewiston and Clarkson at Harris Field. I was told that by the Clarkson baseball coach. I will not say the other stuff he said. I will say that to Robert off the air, because it's not radio friendly. But yeah, I'm very excited to see where the rest of this goes. It's been a very interesting season for sure, and it's winding down quickly. But let's go ahead and move on. We'll go back to the local stuff later on. We will have Alisha on at the top of the 6:00 hour, just to kind of get everybody ready for spring sports at LC. Basketball also coming to a close for the Warriors. So we will have her on, as well as, again, my goal is to try to get more local stuff going. The more and more we build this show, and I'm very proud of how Robert and I have handled it the last month or so. It definitely helps more doing it online like this, and they can just pop on. Everyone has now gotten accustomed to Zoom, I think. We don't use Zoom, but this works just like Zoom. And as much as I've made fun of the two principals and their Zoom etiquette, everyone knows how to Zoom.
You look at Doug bouncing around back and forth, in and out of the light. So,
and I say that I'm pretty sure when Doofenberg gets on here to be our guest judge for our sports-related draft, it'll be the same situation. But let's get into some football, and we'll finish this hour out with pro sports here. As just like last week where we had 4 fantastic games, I think we had 2 very, very good conference championship games that felt completely different from one another. Well, what do you think of the 2 games?
Yeah, exactly. Another overtime win, close, both of them 3-point differentials. The best, I think by far, and we were talking with a couple of staff members today, I think probably the best playoffs we have seen in easily the last 10 years, easily last 10, if not ever, in our generation.
The only way that these playoffs cannot be considered the best of all time is how weak the wild card round was, which again shows pro sports stop being greedy and expanding playoffs. All you do is water it down and make that first round horrible.
Yeah, period. It was a little rough, for some of us. Some of us have had a great playoff run. As yes, I'm going to bring it up, 11-1 in the playoffs. And listen, Denny Grubb, and we asked Denny's opinion when we didn't get Kevin, and then Denny hit it on the head too. I mean, great football all around. I mean, another huge Cooper Kupp sighting.
He's been fantastic.
He has just been great.
So here, I will tip my cap to you. 11-1 is very impressive. But when the last 6 games have all come down to, 5 of the last 6 games have come down to the last possession of a game, and 5 of the last 6 games have had a kick with no time remaining in regulation to either win it or push it to overtime. Records as far as pick'ems go, to me, I mean, partially it's because I've went 1-5 the last 2 weeks. It's tough to say, okay, you've nailed it and you knew exactly, because it could have went the exact opposite way just fine. I lost both games yesterday, and at the end of the third quarter, I was winning both of them by double-digit points. The teams that I picked both blew double-digit leads in the final quarter, and it ended up going your way. It's going to be a fantastic Super Bowl. I'm very, very excited to get some fresh faces in there. So you get all this talk of Stafford. Oh, maybe he wasn't worth the trade because, he had his ups and downs throughout the regular season. Oh, maybe the Rams going all in like this, it's just not going to work. They've given up all of their draft picks. I think we can quiet that down. Stafford did not play perfect on Sunday, but he was very, very good. Obviously, when you have somebody like Cooper Kupp to rely on, and OBJ was making some great plays as well, it does make your job a bit easier. And maybe draft picks don't mean as much as we once thought, which sucks for me because I'm a Jets fan, and that's all I can rely on is what are we going to do in the draft. But you get that storyline with the Rams. For the Bengals now, what a young team that we all thought we're a year or 2 away. Like I go down and I'll get your thoughts on here. But we go back down to our preseason picks, and they weren't good. I had them dead last in the AFC North. You had them third. You had Pittsburgh last. Neither of us were right as who was going to finish last in that division. But neither of us had any thoughts of Cincinnati even making a playoff run. And now here they are in the Super Bowl. And in the end, the way they've played the last 2 months, it's not even that surprising.
No, not at all, especially with the way, and I think you have to say a lot about Jamar Chase, who would have figured that he would have come out and had the season he did. He should hands down win Rookie of the Year. Can't wait to find that out this weekend. But him making a difference. I kind of felt like Joe Mixon. I mean, Joe Mixon was not that guy that we were going to get. Didn't know what we were going to get out of him because of his last couple years, and he just seemed to produce over the last little bit. I think my biggest thing is Joe Burrow the guy that is going to make a huge difference, especially with it only being his second year. Like you said, it is what we thought going to be a 2-year, 3-year thing. All these guys, all these pieces coming together, and then now all of a sudden, boy, they're in the final game of the year and have a great chance of playing well.
And you just look at the AFC right now. I watched a video, and I'll have to link it to you, Robert, later. This guy is really, really funny, but he always breaks down the fan bases at the end of the year and how they acted throughout the season. And he did the one on the Chiefs last night after they got eliminated, and it was basically a Chiefs fan going, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert. Can we go to the NFC? Their quarterbacks are older. Like the young talent quarterback wise, and the AFC is just ridiculous.
Yeah, 100%. And you just look at how much stronger this conference is going to get over the next few years, and what can keep happening, especially if you have the talent that's coming out and some of these coaches that are making huge changes. You look at, I'm kind of excited to see this happen as Bobby Ingram, who the last few years has coached for Baltimore, is leaving. He was the tight end coach, is leaving there to go and coach at Wisconsin as the offensive coordinator. I'm excited to see what Wisconsin can do.
How the hell did we go from young quarterbacks in the NFL to a Baltimore coordinator?
Here's the thing. I'm excited about these professionals who have been playing for many years now starting to get down into. I'm circling my way there. Follow with me. Get on the trail with me. As these guys come in.
What are you, the Buffalo Bills now? What are we circling?
I'm not circling yet. Not yet. I'm not Chris Berman. I'm not Chris Berman. But I'm just excited because these guys that are taking this college down to the college, these guys that have been playing in only just a few years, like Bobby Ingram, is taking this new pro style offense down into the college. And so now we're getting all these college athletes that have what I think a little bit more readiness. And so these kids are getting up here like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase now that have made big plays for your team quicker. I mean, some of these guys that are able to turn. So, Robert Saleh for you, I thought was probably one of the best coaching pickup for last year. It kind of proved itself, maybe, but I'm excited.
They won more games this year than last year.
Exactly. And I think that's
a win.
I think that's what it's coming down to, is some of these kids are getting almost the feeling or the experience of a pro level a little bit earlier.
I think it's partially that, where we're getting a lot more former pro coaches going down to the college level, but I just think the pros have adapted their style of play more to what the colleges do. I think we see a lot more offenses built on play sheets or play styles that we see in college, and that allows some of these kids to come up and adjust quicker. Now, the defenses obviously are bigger and faster and tougher to deal with, and the reads that they have to see are way more complicated than they see in college. And that's where a lot of these college quarterbacks have issues early on when they get to the NFL. But I do think that they have kind of simplified things offensively enough where they are able to just go on a few reliable moves. We saw that with Mahomes early on with there's a lot of screen passes and a lot of check downs that are available on top of everything else. And we've just gotten to this new era where quarterbacks are so mobile that they can create time, which makes the secondary have so much more issues. And it makes the quarterbacks look even better. I mean, Joe Burrow, we talked about 2 weeks ago, getting sacked 9 times and the Bengals still beating the Titans. I think he should have been sacked 19 times on Sunday. And I don't know if he got sacked once against Kansas City. He was doing his best Big Ben impression of he got hit so many different moments in that game and just refused to go down. So I think the athleticism of the quarterbacks is another big reason why we're seeing such a change in the way and how early quarterbacks are able to evolve into those top tier NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah, Joe Burrow was only sacked one time for a 7-yard loss. Mahomes sacked just 4 times.
And one of them for a 73-yard loss where he kept just rolling backward. I don't know. That was a weird play. That was a Tim Tebow style play.
Yep, 100%. But like you said, Cincinnati comes back from being down 18. You had a huge lead there, and I thought, oh man, this game's over. But
Chase was sad, and then he was very happy.
Right, and both quarterbacks weren't extremely terrible. Mahomes, 3 touchdowns. He does throw 2 interceptions. His first 2 interceptions in the AFC Championship. But I think for me watching that game, I think the biggest thing has to be that final play of the first half. Cincinnati holds Patrick Mahomes out of the end zone. Stops.
How do you throw it?
Yeah,
in play there. I don't get it. And honestly, after that play, Mahomes came out was super tight. That whole offense was very tight, and you could just feel a difference in the air down there in Arrowhead. And now we have the Bengals and the Rams in the Super Bowl. We will make our Super Bowl picks next week. We still have the Pro Bowl this weekend. Nobody cares. They've moved it to Vegas. Yeah, this is what I care about the Pro Bowl. It's not in Hawaii anymore. It's in Vegas. So I don't care what happens Sunday. I care what happens after the game Sunday and how many arrests get made. Because that's always the issues when football players go to Vegas, then they get a little too crazy and then they get arrested. And then we have to hear about that. It's just, so we will see if everybody can be on their P's and Q's down there in Nevada.
I didn't add it to our notes, but I think I'm more excited this week of the skills competition. Have you seen the skills, what they're doing this year?
No, but is dodgeball still a thing?
I would, I don't know. I'm like you. You made the comment of bringing back, what was it? Kick-tack-toe?
Yeah. Let the kickers try to kick through different boxes in the field goal post and try to get tic-tac-toe. I loved it.
Yeah.
All right, so we will get to the Super Bowl right now. Rams are what, a 4.5-point favorite, which is, have you not seen how NFL has gone the last 2 weeks?
Yep.
Like right now I'm leaning on picking the Rams, but I have yet to decide. But if you're giving me the spread, I'm absolutely taking the team that gets more than 3 points.
Period. I would agree. I mean, it's still early. We're a lot out, especially, not knowing some of the injuries with all of them. The big one, the tight end for Cincinnati only ends up
done. He's done for the year, I think.
MCL sprain,
whatever. Yeah. I still don't see him playing. I'm sure he's going to do his best, but at least it looks like he'll be able to be fine come next year. I think that'll be the main thing. All right. I'm going to go through. Well, let's do the main one first.
Okay.
Sean Payton announces his retirement from the New Orleans Saints. Comes out of the blue. I don't think anybody was purely expecting it. Do you feel like he had so much stress going on this year that it finally pushed him over the edge? He has said in interviews this week that he has thought about it for the last couple of years. But do you think the fact that the Saints broke the record for most starters used in a season, the fact that they had 4 starting quarterbacks that they had to use this year because of injuries or poor play, you think that just made him finally go, okay, I need a break?
I think so. I mean, 100%, because look at what these coaches are doing now just to field a team anymore. Injuries from concussions, going through the concussion protocol to now dealing with COVID and that kind of stuff. The stress level on these coaches has to be out of the roof. I mean, I just can't imagine what Sean Payton and even all of these guys are going through. So I think he steps away for a while.
1 year.
1 year, and I think he comes back. I think he gets rejuvenated, ready to go. Makes you wonder where he's going to go.
I don't have to worry at all. I don't have to think. I know. Everyone knows.
I think everyone
Cowboys. It's the Dallas Cowboys. Mike McCarthy, if you don't win the Super Bowl, you don't have a job next year.
I think you're right. I think if he doesn't make I think it's more if he doesn't make the playoffs, he's gone.
Though the issue is, and it has been said by Sean Payton that he is still under contract with the Saints, so it's not like he can just sit out a year and then sign wherever he wants. Dallas would have to make a trade.
Right.
And I think they would. I think they would do anything they could to make that happen. All right, I'm going to list through the rest of these offseason coaching changes. And just tell me at the end of this. It's a long list. We're cleaning things out quickly. But where you think the biggest moves have been. So the Denver Broncos hire the Green Bay's offensive coordinator, Nathaniel Hackett, for the head coach. Chicago hires Colts defensive coordinator, Mac Eberflus. Is that how you say his name?
Yeah.
Eberflus, I think. They also have Ryan Poles as a new GM, and the Green Bay quarterback coach, Luke Getsy, is their new offensive coordinator. Las Vegas hires Patriots offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels for now. We'll see if he pulls the same thing he did with the Colts and goes, never mind, and goes back to New England. But for now, they are going to hire him as their new head coach. Dave Ziegler is the new GM. He was also with the Patriots before. Giants hire Bills offensive coordinator Brian Daboll. Baltimore hires Mike McDonald as a defensive coordinator. He was on the staff for many years, then went and coached with a different Harbaugh down in Michigan for a season. Carolina hires Ben McAdoo as the offensive coordinator, former Giants head coach there. And Green Bay promotes their offensive line coach to offensive coordinator. Which one really stands out, and which one do you think is going to fall flat on its face?
I think the one that, for me, that falls flat on the face is the Ben McAdoo one. I'm surprised that guy is still coaching anymore, and to give him the opportunity to be an offensive coordinator, especially back in Carolina, it makes me wonder what's his game plan with Christian McCaffrey. I mean, I wasn't impressed with him when he was up in New York. I think that one's it's going to implode, and it's going to get back to Carolina does nothing again this year. I think the one that interests me the most, and I hate saying it, but he's been the protege. He's been that guy. I think the one that intrigues me the most is seeing Josh Daniels go to Las Vegas. I think it is going to be one of those games, that team that will be interesting because of all the hype around being in Vegas. I think him controlling it, but I'm excited to see him take a step back out in front and be that head guy. So I think that's the one I think I'll be watching the most.
For me, I think that's the one that's going to fall on its face. It's McDaniels with the Raiders. I think he's been overhyped. I think that was why he pulled the plug on the Colts thing, is he got cold feet. He's like, oh, wait a minute, I'm going to leave Belichick and people are going to see me for what I am. How many times has a Patriot coordinator worked out as a head coach? Almost never. And, he's been there forever. He's been a head coach before and it didn't work out. So I don't see it. It's not like being a coach underneath Nick Saban, where you learn from Belichick. Belichick's not going to give you the secrets. And then when you go out and you're on your own, you're not going to succeed at all. For me, the one I think might work out, though it all depends on what he does at quarterback, is Brian Daboll in the Giants. I loved what he was able to do with Buffalo, where they changed the entire style of that team around Josh Allen and focused on his abilities instead of trying to make Josh Allen fit with what the offensive coordinator does. So him going to the Giants in a pure rebuilding situation is he's going to go out, find whatever quarterback's going to fit perfectly as far as talent-wise, of just he's really, really good, going to find his strengths and then build the team around him. And I think it's going to be very interesting. And honestly, let's just remind ourselves the NFC East stinks. So all you have to be is and you can win that division. I mean, everyone thought Dallas was going to win the Super Bowl because they were crushing everyone else in the NFC East by 30 points. And then anytime they didn't play anybody in the NFC East, they stunk. So all you have to do to win that division is just be mediocre.
Right. And then that's the thing. And there's some names on this list that it makes me wonder. I mean, I've never heard of some of these names on the list, but then you go back to questioning, what about Raheem Morris? What about these few guys that were talked up so much over the past few years?
Why is Leftwich not hired yet? Now, I mean, we finally get, I I'm blanking on his name, the offensive coordinator for Kansas City, who always gets mentioned, but they're
Bieniemy?
always in the play. Yeah, Bieniemy, who's always mentioned, but is always still in the playoffs when everyone gets hired. Now he's finally available. I would love to see those two get a job.
Well, I mean, I even say it too, and I think eventually he might get a job. I think maybe one more year with Dallas. But what about Kellen Moore? I mean, Kellen Moore has called some fantastic games this year. Yeah, he's had a couple of games, but for the most part, I think he would be a great coach too. So it'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm. All right, we're gonna skip the refs for the Super Bowl. We'll talk about that next week as that game gets closer. And I still need to look at who these people even are. They're just names on a sheet right now. But I gotta ask. I mean, we still got a week and a half until. But I want you to show your age, sir. So we've already known who what the halftime show was going to be, but they had their big hype video about it. And when I asked you the other day off camera, you kind of gave me the same reaction that I was expecting. But your thoughts on Eminem, Snoop Dogg, Mary J. Blige, Kendrick Lamar, and Dr. Dre being the halftime show at SoFi Stadium?
You talked about showing my age, and right now you and I can see our guest, and she's laughing at me right now because she knows how this is going to be, how hard this is for me.
So
because I don't know. I just never have been a Snoop Dogg fan. Come on, man. Just give me some AC/DC. Put Bon Jovi.
They're 170 years old.
I don't care, but I don't. Not Snoop
I love
Dogg.
AC/DC with everyone else. They're too old.
I just can't. I can't do Snoop Dogg and Eminem, and even Eminem's younger than I am. But dang, I think the last good.
Oh,
show,
this is what I want to hear. When was the last halftime show? And if you say the Who, I'm kicking you off the show.
No. I actually listen. I as much as I grew up listening to him, I think probably Michael Jackson or the Prince concert was. Probably
you don't think anybody's been good since Michael Jackson? Wasn't that like 1980?
Yeah.
Stop it. There's not been a good halftime show since that. Prince was good. Prince was. I have a list out here. Prince was 2007.
I think
was
Prince
good.
and Michael Jackson were the last two good ones.
Bruno Mars wasn't good a few years ago. Coldplay wasn't good. Lady Gaga I thought was fantastic.
I'm not
even a Lady Gaga fan. I thought her performance was great. Justin Timberlake has always been fun. I was really funny to have him come back after the whole wardrobe malfunction.
And that's what I was going to say. The only one thing he's known for is the wardrobe malfunction with Janet Jackson.
Yeah, well, he came back a couple years ago and did just fine. The weekend was rough, but I kind of blame COVID for that. And let's just have half of our halftime show in a room of mirrors. I didn't get that one, but there you go. It just shows you a young fan. He thought Weeknd was pretty good. I like The Weeknd. I like his music, but I just thought his halftime show was pretty boring. I'm very, very, very excited not only to see this halftime show, but and to possibly show my age because most of these rappers, were big when I was a kid. So I'm going to be into it all. But then we do our bowling party. We have our Super Bowl set as well. We have the party right after. And then we have like a little buffet for anyone that wants to stick around. I'm so excited to see you old fogies throw a big, giant fit like you do every single halftime show when your performer is not 73 years old. It's like Bruce Springsteen was the halftime show when he was 70. Like he made great music in the 70s and 80s. It was not a perfect fit in 2003. And I say that while it's also bringing up Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, who made good music in the 90s and we're 30 years from them. So I'm a big hypocrite right now, and I don't care because this is what I grew up on, and I'm excited for it. And you get Kendrick Lamar, so you kind of get some of the new stuff in there. So we brought her up.
Who's Kendrick Lamar? Who's Kendrick Lamar?
He's a rapper.
I
know I know one or two songs from him, and they're both good.
The rap that I grew up on, give me some Tone Loc, Young MC, Naughty by Nature. Come on, give me those guys. I'm okay with that.
We're so old. And
how about some 2 Live Crew? We could do some 2 Live Crew. I could do that.
Laughed at. So we're going to bring on our other guest here, Alisha. Alisha, help us out. What are your thoughts on this halftime show?
I don't watch a lot of the halftime shows, to be honest. I don't remember who a lot of them are. I remember Katy Perry a couple years ago. That wasn't bad. That's when the whole left or right shark thing became a thing.
That definitely took over the halftime show for sure. Yeah. That wasn't bad.
Yeah. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, the police for the halftime show, and I was confused because I didn't know who the police were.
See, there you go.
It's just an age thing. I mean, we got to get back to the old rock. That's what it is.
Yeah. The old rock is great to listen to. It's a horrible halftime show because they just sit there.
Who was it a couple of years ago? It was Shakira and somebody else.
Shakira and Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah, and I thought it was going to be good, and it was just.
Yeah, because it's all about the spectacle of it. Like, and then obviously the music has to be kind of good. Like Black Eyed Peas a decade ago, like tried to do the crazy spectacle, and their music's horrible. Yeah. So that one didn't work out as well. But that's why I liked Lady Gaga so much. It's like I'm not a huge Lady Gaga fan. Like I don't sit there and listen to her music all the time. Her spectacle was fantastic, and the music was good enough that it was very enjoyable. And listen, like I listen to old time rock and roll all the time, just like everyone else. Sitting here and watching, like, who is it, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers or whatever, just sit there on a stool for 15 minutes playing their music. That's not an enjoyable halftime show. I mean,
bring out someone who actually puts on a good Garth Brooks.
Garth Brooks would be really, really good, even at this age. Yeah. I'm not a country music fan. Watching some of the shows that he can put on, I'm with that.
And it's his birthday next week. I mean, he should have easily come down there to LA. He's already going to be in Vegas.
Where's the Super Bowl next year? Because this is I think why we're getting Dr. Dre and Snoop Dogg, and because it's in California and LA, and that's that kind of music. But where's the Super Bowl next year? I don't even know.
I couldn't tell you. But that's the thing. I mean, you put that music on, the stuff we grew up on, or I grew up on. The kids that I work with at school actually know the songs, they sing it. Why wouldn't we put somebody in there that these kids could rock out with? I mean, need it. Yeah,
Eric saying it's the first time he's actually excited for the halftime show. Next year it's in Arizona. I was thinking if like it was in Dallas or something, because Dallas has WrestleMania this year, and usually WrestleMania and the Super Bowl are very close to each other as far as location goes, because to put on either of those events, you have to have things coordinated right. And usually cities are like, if we just do them back to back, then we're already prepped for the other one. But it's Arizona next year, then Nevada. It'll be in Las Vegas in 2024, and then New Orleans. So we get some good locations. And music-wise, it could be very interesting. Can we get Elvis for the Super Bowl 50?
I mean, Vegas.
Where are we at? What are we at now? 58 would be that one?
Mm-hmm.
It'd be fun. All right, Alicia, we did not bring you on for halftime show, but we had to get into that. My question to you, before we get into the spring sports and going into that, what in the world has happened to the LCSC men's basketball team? And what do we have to get them to start practicing 30 minutes earlier? Because they never start really playing till the second half.
And they were like that a little bit last year. We did see quite a bit of, if it was close in the first, they were a second half team. Even the last 2 years, you could say that. But I think what we have to remember is it's a completely different team than the last couple of years. There's one returning starter from last year, and that's Khalil. He's really the only one that played really any amount of minutes. Silas got in there. Sam got in there a little bit, but it is a completely different team than last year. And you can't expect, Austin Johnson's a fantastic coach, but you can't expect a team to be that caliber every single year. And it was hard for me to adjust too, because, after a couple losses, I was like, okay, I forgot what it was like to write the story when they lose. But, this year we have to remember that everybody gets hurt, everybody gets sick, and it's just, you're not dealing with Danique Mitchell and Tristan Bradley anymore. They were here for their 4 years, and we relied on them so heavily, and it's a completely different mix this year.
So I think the big thing maybe for me, and maybe you can correct me, and because you have a lot of time with these guys, but it seems like it's kind of turned a lot since the 2 forfeits that we had to have over, 3 weeks ago. Do you think that affected their mindset, and maybe that might be a little why they're playing they are?
They can be part of it. And I think another thing that plays into it is when you have to deal with the COVID protocol, just because they're done with their quarantine doesn't mean they're back right away. They have to go through, they have to get cleared physically as well. And they haven't had everybody at every single practice throughout the year due to injuries and illness. So just to get that cohesiveness back when dealing with all those stressors, plus that happened, the fact that it was on the road was a big deal. They've been on the road the last 2 weekends and dealing with injuries and illness. There's just so much going on. It's their first year in this conference, their first full year in this conference. So on top of having a new team, you're dealing with a new conference and new opponents. I mean, they'd never played at Multnomah before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was last year they were part of the CCC with College of Idaho, and
that's exactly. They played Multnomah last year. Multnomah came here 4 games, something like that. But really, their only real conference competition was C of I, and we were a completely different team when we played C of I last year. We don't have, like I said, Demique Mitchell, one of the greatest players to come through the program. Same with Tristan Bradley, Travis Yenner, Hodges Bailey, guys that had helped build that foundation under Austin Johnson. So now you got Kevin and Al, who are great players, but it's their first year here, and trying to rebuild what they had last year is just not possible.
Yeah, and Kevin's kind of been in and out of the lineup right now, right?
Yeah, he's having some injury issues, but he's working his way back.
But Robert brought up the forfeits, and I want to go back to it as how much stress and drama was involved on your end when all of that went down. So I've talked to a few people. We had a couple of people on that were able to kind of talk about the situation. I worked with Brian Danner and got his take because he was out there with the team as well. But as the SID and getting that, that news the day of the game after the team has already traveled, what kind of stresses did you have to go through for that?
Well, not want to say luckily, but it was on the road. So that took a little bit off my plate with it being on the road. I didn't have to worry about, letting my workers know, hey, there's no game tonight. I couldn't put anything out regarding the game until the conference announced it. So really, once the conference announced it, I just copy and paste what the conference says and say we're following the conference's protocols for that specific thing that's going on. I mean, but then you do take into account, okay, how does this affect our record? How does this affect our standings? And just be ready for the questions that they're going to come in. We have, what's nice about LC is you do have a lot of local media attention. They're all going to be asking, who was it? What team? What's the protocol? What's going on? Are they going to make up the games? They're not going to make up the games? That kind of thing. Why is it that both teams didn't play? That kind of thing. Yeah. So that's the hard part, is really answering everybody's questions about it.
Right. Yeah, I had fun. I talked to Danner probably for 20 minutes, like the week after it had happened, and hearing his side of the story and what they went through, and the craziness of, okay, these guys got in the car and left, and we got back on the bus, and the hotel didn't even let them stay, and it sounded like it was a crazy time.
The logistical side of it, I know Christina Keener deals a lot with the travel and the hotels and everything. I'm glad that's not my part of the job, because that was a little bit of a logistical nightmare. I mean, no one really knows how to handle anything like this until it actually happens.
So that we switched from the men's side to the women's side, and they are having a fantastic year. Technically 3 losses, but 2 of them came in,
there's only one on-court loss, really.
Yes. They've been, and not only are they, like, the record's so good, they are entertaining. They're so fun to watch when I'm able to get a stream to watch, because I'm broke and I can't afford ours, which I'm sorry, Alicia, but I just can't do it. I want to support LC. I just can't do it right now. Christmas hurt the wallet a bit more than I want to talk about.
You're a student. You get in for free.
I have to work for the Tribune. They've blocked me up in the basement, and I can't watch. My job as a sports writer is to not watch sports, just get told what the heck happened afterwards. That's my job. So I can't go to these things. But from what I've been able to watch or be able to read, it's every game is within a possession or 2 every single time. How do they handle this?
It's kind of the same thing, the same but different for the girls. It's a completely different team for the girls as well, and they're facing these teams for the first time. But the girls that are stepping up are the girls, they've been there for 2-3 years now. Callie Stevens and Maddie Holm, they're sophomores. Callie actually missed a good chunk of last year with an injury, but just getting them out on the court, getting them consistent playing time, we're able to see how good these recruiting classes are, and how much certain girls like Sarah Muehlhausen have improved over the last 3 years. She's a junior now. And they've been together long enough, and that's the difference with the men's team. The men's team hasn't been together as long. These girls have been together for a couple of years now, and they don't give up. They don't, and that's a trend for LC women's basketball. There was a game, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, where they came out against Providence and they were down 20-0, and they came back and they won the game. And I think that's just part of the culture that Brian Orr has set up for that team.
Yeah, you say a lot about Brian Orton and what he has done to the program, and you brought up Austin. What is it like to work for those two guys and do a lot of stuff with both of those offices with those two gentlemen?
They are so completely different. Every coach is different. You have Brian, who's been in the game longer than I've been alive. And then you have Austin, who, it's his fourth season at LC. They both know what they want. They both know what they like, and you have to make sure you cater to both of them. Austin is very much, I don't know if modern coach is the right term, but he's very big on social media. He wants, his team looks the part. I don't know. He preaches a lot of like togetherness. That's a huge thing for him. He has his mottos that are big on their social media, and you can see it in the way they play. Whereas Brian, aside from in-game, is very much more behind the scenes as a coach.
So we have a home games this weekend, Friday and Saturday. Friday against College of Idaho, and Saturday against Eastern Oregon. What 3 weeks left in the regular season? What do we have left for basketball?
We've got about a month left, I think, in the regular season. We've got home games this weekend. We've got home games senior weekend, 18-19. They play Walla Walla at home. So we got the games this weekend. They play Walla Walla at home a week from tomorrow. But we're winding down. We're more than halfway through the conference season right now. So it's getting close to crunch time. The girls have clinched a spot in the playoffs. It is an 18 playoff. I talked to Bert Salbert about that today, confirmed that it is an 18 playoff. So the top seeds will host. The bottom four in the conference are automatically out. So the girls right now are sitting in a tie for second. They're half game back of EOU, which makes the game on Saturday that much more important.
Mm-hmm. And you said it's a home game, and that one I think slated for 5:00. So looking forward for that one. So what about the boys side? Where we sitting playoff wise for the guys?
So we're, I believe, fifth in the conference right now. We've got two tough teams this weekend with C of I, number 10 in the nation. EOU upset C of I last week during their midweek game. So both strong teams. We edged EOU last time, lost to C of I at C of I. So two really important games for them. But Austin even said after the loss at Warner Pacific, there's still plenty of season left to make up the ground. They've got Walla Walla next week, which we did really well against Walla Walla last time. So hopefully that'll help turn things around. We're also hoping to fill up the P1FCU Activity Center on Friday. Randy, I see your shirt. Your Warrior Zone shirt. We're hoping to have plenty of those in the stands on Friday. And it's the in-state rival game. It's the C of I game. Everybody knows that there's a rivalry, whether it be volleyball, basketball, baseball, even women's tennis. C of I has a women's tennis team that will be here in Lewiston playing our tennis team on Sunday in the tennis center. So doesn't matter what sport, there's a rivalry there.
Yeah, I thought about that as our schedule. Things looks just crazy over the next couple of weeks. Randy and I are doing Lewiston and Clarkson stuff, but it intrigued me in a little bit. And you talked about the tennis team, and I'm going to dive into that just a little bit. Tennis opens up this weekend. They're Kaifong and the guys, they're getting ready to take on 6 different players getting ready to make their debut for LC.
That was the women's team that had the 6 debuts, and that's already happened.
Yep, that was awesome. That was on Saturday. The men have a bunch of new players as well, but the girls lost their top 3 players from last year. So it was, they had Kyla Collier on the court, who she's the longest tenured out there. And aside from that, I mean, the top 3 singles were all new. They were all newcomers. And considering they played, University of Montana, they did well. Our girl playing number 3 singles, Beatrice, I was impressed.
Yeah, she was the only one that won a set for LC. But again, they're taking on Montana, who's a very tough competition for sure. Very excited to see how the women do. For on the men's side, where they do start this weekend, where they're down in Phoenix right now. Yep. What do we expect from them? Because I know they had a lot of changeover last year. Are we getting a lot of the same names back this year?
So we've got Ataru and Williams still in our top. They're our top 2 players. Expect to see them, possibly teamed up in doubles, going back and forth between 1 and 2 singles. But Itaru was a freshman. He's from Japan. He came in last year and just not surprised, but he impressed a lot of people with how good he was and how well he adjusted so quickly. He was actually voted on by the student athletes. He was voted the freshman of the year amongst the department. And then William has been there for 4 or 5 years now, using his extra year. So he's a senior this year. He's been a consistent part of that lineup for a while. So those two are definitely the leaders on the team. And they've got a local kid, Austin Gomez, whose dad actually played for Kai back in the 90s at LC. They've got Austin Swing from down in Middleton, the Boise area. I think it's the Boise area. I don't know. But a lot of fresh faces, and from around the world, which is what Kai is known to do. And he brings in good players that are willing to work hard, and they gel together really well when you see them playing doubles.
So I just want to know why. So we got track and field coming up this weekend. They're in Spokane on Friday and Saturday for the US or WSU Open and Invite. But why didn't Clayton Van Dyke win Player of the Week this week? I know they didn't have a meet, but he's just so used to winning it. Why didn't he win it this week? Same thing with Madigan Kelly. She's been fantastic too.
I know. So Clayton, I was doing some research with the conference SID, and as far as we can tell, Clayton's one of the few people to win it back to back, let alone twice in the same season. The last Warrior to win it twice in the same season was Sam Adkin. So he's in some pretty good company there, but back to back, we really couldn't find anybody else who's done that, especially with a sport like track that doesn't typically compete every weekend. They usually take a weekend off or so. And Clayton 4 school records so far this season. 2 of his times currently are the top in the NAIA. He's a 3-time national runner-up, twice at indoor. So I know that's the top of his list, is to get past that national runner-up and bring home a title.
And he's just so fun to talk to. Of course, we've had him on here twice. Anytime we need a runner, Alicia's like, just have Clayton on. He's a great interview, and he always is. And it's so fun. And to see him succeed the way he is, and the confidence he has within himself, and he pushes himself to be as good as he is great. Thoughts on Madigan Kelly and what she's been able to do here with her first year at LC?
Every single race, the girl has gotten faster. It's insane. I mean, she came out in her collegiate debut and broke the record, and just every single time she gets faster. She's right on there for some of Annika's records in the 200. She's so fast. She's so fast. And I was talking to Tracy Collins about this a couple weeks ago, and just seeing how much the track program has progressed in the last couple years, and doing so with the local talent. You look at that first meet, and we had Madigan break records. She's from Lewiston. Annika's breaking records. She's from Lewiston. London Kirk is from Deary. Terrell Lawson is from Clarkston. Sydney Zwine is from Orofino. They're doing it with the kids from around here, which is so cool.
Yeah, and then we have to get to baseball, because obviously that is just kicked off, and we are getting extremely close to the first home games of the season.
Yes.
But what do you expect to see from the baseball team this year? Obviously, no automatic qualifier for the World Series. We get the automatic qualifier and the hosting spot for the opening rounds, but what do you expect to see this year?
So far, so good. I mean, they're 4-0 against some top teams. The highest ranked team they played, they destroyed. 16-3 against Vanguard. The pitching looks good so far. Your mainstays, your Riley Wade, your AJ Davis, Luke White. Matt James from last year, who's contributing. Sam Lynn Scott has really found it. He was a platoon guy last year. He comes out this year as one of the starters in the outfield. 8 for 13, 7 RBIs in 4 games. Not too shabby. They'll play another ranked team on tomorrow with Benedictine Mesa, number 23. They did well. They went extra innings with them last year, so that'll be a good one. And then Arizona Christian, they swept last year. Whitman, they haven't played since 2002. So that'll be. Whitman was 20-20 last year. They're not in a super competitive conference for baseball in Division III, but it'll still be good to get the guys back on the field, because as far as I've seen this semester with the snow, they haven't had a chance to get on the field.
So how excited are you for this Sunday and for getting that home opener out of the way?
I will be happy to get the weekend out of the way. I love my job, and it's just gonna be a long weekend with basketball, both basketballs 2 days in a row, baseball doubleheader, tennis at home. It's just gonna be a long weekend, but it's gonna be a lot of fun because you're gonna have those competitive basketball games. It'll be nice to have baseball back at Harris Field, see the guys out on the field, and then tennis with some good matches with Whitworth and College of Idaho in the tennis center.
We had talked at the beginning of the school year how you were very excited that, sports were back spread out the way they were supposed to. This week shows that we can still cram as much as possible.
Yeah.
Have you talked to the volleyball team about just throwing a meet together so we get them all in?
No. So this is the busiest time of year for SIDs, at least for the way our sports are set up. This is the winter spring crossover. Actually, February 18th, 19th, we have baseball and basketball both starting at 3:00 on the 18th. So that'll be fun. We've got back-to-back days of baseball and basketball both at home on the same days. But really, it is fun to be able to have everybody competing during their regular season, having full conference schedules, and just getting back out there and having some sense of normalcy for these kids is just, it's great.
Do we have official word yet on any special plans to honor Ed Chef this year, or is that still being worked on?
So it's still being worked on. The guys will be wearing patches once those come in on their jerseys with his number on them, 27. And then there are plans. We're working with the family to still figure out the logistics, but we're looking at March 19th, having a ceremony on the field. It's actually a bye weekend for the guys. They don't play that weekend. So it would be something on the field, open for people to come and hear from, probably Gary Piccone, guys who have played for Chef. So just something nice where there's nothing else to worry about. There's no game to worry about. Just honor Ed Chef.
Right. And I want to stay with that for a minute. And I know you never had the opportunity. I know you've had probably many stories about Ed. What can you tell us about maybe one of the stories you've heard about Ed Chef?
Oh gosh. I think of one that I can tell. Everybody I've talked to said, yeah, he was serious about his job and he was serious about winning. But every single player you talked to that played for him said that they came out a better man because they played for him. I did a story a couple of years ago talking to some former players that are now on the scouting side. So, Steve Decker was one of them. They all said, yeah, it was difficult at times. Even Jake Taylor said it was difficult at times. He was that coach that would get in your face and scream at you, but he did it in a way that made you grow up and made you a better man. That's still the point of LC baseball. Yeah, you want to play baseball, you want to win. You're here to win, but you're here to become a man. And that's what you talk to Jaden Phillips, whose dad and his cousin, dad and uncle played for Chef, and they were friends with Chef well after their time playing at LC. Chef gave the induction speech. Same with Bill Mills when they went into the Hall of Fame at the last induction. And they don't just stop that relationship once they're done at LC. It carries on. He played a role in their lives as young men, but it continued on. So he has a lasting impact in all those people's lives.
Absolutely. And it's just been great to see through Twitter and all the other social media sites, all the love and support from everybody with after the passing of Ed Chef and everything that went along with that. We've obviously talked about it the last few weeks and hearing the stories obviously from Denny Grubb last week too were absolutely fantastic. I want to leave you on this, and it's something that I know we don't want to think about, but as an SID, it's a situation I think that is very possible with baseball this year, with LC not having the automatic bid into the World Series. How do we get fans to continue to fully support the World Series if somehow LC does not make that final 10?
If for some reason LC's not in that final 10, I want the local people here in the Valley to realize that if you're not coming to the series, then the NAI is going to say, well, why do we have the series in Lewiston? If we're not, because the big draw, we pack those stands. The championship game, if LC's on the championship game, because I haven't had the chance to see them in one yet, we're still sold out. If that doesn't happen, though, the NAI is going to say, well, what's the draw of having the series in Lewiston if people aren't going to go? And that's why they brought it here, was because people came. People didn't go when it was in Florida. People didn't go when it was in Iowa. People come when it's in Lewiston. So if we wanted to stay in Lewiston, people have to continue to support the series, whether or not the Warriors are in that championship game or in the series altogether.
That's the one thing that I definitely want to see. And it's been that way before, because Robert and I always on Memorial Day, that was our day where we're going to go watch 4 games and then be as red as our shirts are right now when we're done. We didn't see that as much last year. I haven't seen the numbers, but I'm pretty sure the attendance was down. A lot of it was with the COVID stuff, and a lot of it was just, it was hot.
It was hot.
Like we were triple digits all the time. It was zero crowd or cloud cover. It was like I want to say, well, I get done doing a PA game on one of the days and go, there's like 7 people in the crowd. This stinks. And then you go back to where like the concessions are, and there's 150 people underneath one umbrella trying to watch stuff. So it's like, I know a lot of people were trying to rag on Lewiston for poor attendance last year, but there was a lot of extra circumstances, and I'm just hoping, like you, and that's why I wanted to bring it up, was if for some reason LC does not make it, I really hope they do, and from what they have shown so far, they're going to be a very, very good team. But if they don't, still come out and support, because I mean everyone loves the World Series being here, and we want it to continue. I have no problem with them not being the automatic qualifier anymore, so people can stop complaining. They'll find other things to complain about for sure. But yeah, come out and show up. But hopefully we don't have to worry about it.
They call it a baseball town. You got to be a baseball town whether or not your team's in it.
Absolutely. Yep. All right, Alisha, again, thank you so much. I know it's been a very, very busy week for you and getting ready for all the winter sports to end and the spring sports to get going in full. But we always have to get you on before the start of the next section of a season and kind of get the word out. And I always appreciate chatting with you.
Don't forget, golf starts next month too.
Yeah, absolutely. We're ready. We're trying to figure out what I'm going to do, like golfing when we're down in Vegas and stuff. So yeah, golf is definitely on my mind right now.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Alisha.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Alisha.
That is Alisha Alexander, the SID for LC, one of our favorite guests. I think she holds the record, right, for most times on. It's either her or Shannon Wilson. But we haven't had Wilson on in a little bit.
Well, that's a good thing. He's still a Cowboys fan, so
right. We don't need the crying.
You know what we forgot to talk to her about was ask her what her idea of what's going to happen with MLB is.
I'm trying to listen. They're going in a positive way.
They are going in a positive way.
MLB The Show has put Ohtani on the cover. That got announced today, even though I think we all knew that was coming. Anyways, I'm trying to be positive about baseball and thinking about LC baseball, which is starting this Sunday, and no lockout's going to mess that up. And I don't have anything going on Sunday afternoon, so there's a good chance I can at least go watch some of it. So let's not sour this with horrible stuff. Let's go through some quickly local high school stuff, and then we're going to get to our sports related draft. And I'll tell you right now, after the high school sports, if you're not a wrestling fan, thank you for joining us, and we will see you next week. The Royal Rumble is going to take over a little bit with the sports related draft. I had to have my fun. We don't talk wrestling on the show very often, but it was the Royal Rumble on Saturday night. So we've got to. But local sports, obviously, the Golden Throne took over a lot of basketball. Unfortunately, we did not get the Golden Plunger wrestling event the day before as it was originally set up. But I do want to say, I said it earlier when we were done with the two principals, but Lewiston's girls have their senior night tomorrow night, 5:30 p.m. up at LHS. And the boys will play afterwards at 7 o'clock. They play Coeur d'Alene, who is one of the best teams in the state on both sides, girls and boys. And then the boys will play again on Thursday. They will host Lake City, who are also fantastic, at 7 o'clock. That'll be at LHS. And then Friday will be the first round, of regional play for the girls' side of basketball. And I haven't heard official word yet, but just looking at the standings, I can almost guarantee it. Lewiston will be traveling to that same Coeur d'Alene team on the road for the first round. And so first round is Friday. Then they play again on Tuesday, no matter what. And then it depends if they win at least a game or both games or no games, what happens after that. But that is what's happening with Lewiston. What's happening with Clarkson basketball?
Well, Clarkson ended up having to play right after Golden Throne. They had a game on Saturday as they girls finally got to have their second home game. They took care of business with Shadle Park. Pretty easy to walk away with that one. Alejandra Perez had had a big game for them.
Sorry, we have our guest ready for the sports related draft is messing with his camera, and just the view I'm getting on the background is the funniest thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, go ahead. It is. Hey, Alejandra Perez did really good. She hit 5 big 3-pointers. Ended up having 4 of them in the second half in that ball game. Maggie Ogden also drops 11 against Shadle Park. The boys also avenged their loss against Shadle Park from 2 weeks ago. They end up winning in overtime, 65-60. Xavier Santana comes up big, has 12 points in the overtime alone, ends up with 31 in that one. And Mason Vantine, good off the bench again, scores 12 points. So it's kind of good. Great to see him back. But tomorrow is senior night also at Clarkston. So I guess it's pick which side you want to go to. Do you go Lewiston for senior night or Clarkston to senior night? Game changes.
Hey. Who has the toilet? That's where you go come hang out.
You can have the toity. We are playing Rogers, so it is going to be probably a little lopsided on that one. It was some changes in time. Girls now will be playing at 5:30, boys at 7. It was slated the other direction. And then I'll be on the road with the team on Friday as I travel up to West Valley, as the boys will tip at 5:30, girls will tip at 7. And then we have another full week of regular games before district play. So we've got one more week that entails Pullman and East Valley. So we're not done yet.
All I know is if the girls make any kind of a run, which I'm hoping they do, my schedule next week sucks.
Yeah.
So you have the second round of regionals on Tuesday. The boys play at home on Wednesday. Then if the girls had went 1-1, so they have to play in that second play-in game for the Inland Empire. They would play that on Thursday. The boys are at home on Friday, and then the state play-in game for if they had won that game on Thursday would then take place on Saturday. Yeah. And so it's like on the road at home, on the road at home. So it'd be crazy, and I'm very much ready for it. And that's why we're doing the shows on Monday.
Big thing other than that, lots of action. Get out and see things, especially if you have not seen them yet. Go watch Lapway, man. Lapway, our buddy Zach Eastman is doing some fantastic things. Those boys are now 16-0. Wildcats right now are averaging 82 points a game. Their last 4 games have been 90 points or more. They've got 3 games in the hundreds and then defeated Potlatch night before or Saturday and won that one 90-47. But it is crazy watching those guys, and especially they beat Coeur d'Alene. They beat the big team. So hands down, you and I talked about this the other day. Lapway is the best team in Idaho. Has to be the best team.
It doesn't matter what division you're talking about. They're the best team in Idaho. And the girls team is not bad at all. They're a very good team as well. Wrestling side, obviously Clarkston going through their COVID protocols right now. Lewiston was in the North Idaho Rumble. Hoyt Havas won the 120-pound weight division. Tristan Bremer won at 132. And Lewiston finished 6th. Out of the 18 teams, they have scheduled for tomorrow, maybe a senior night, because that was supposed to be the Clarkson meet, but they right now have a to be determined as the opponent. So I'm not 100% sure what they are doing just yet. And I forget what day I think it was the second or third for that. Maybe we'll put it on our Facebook page once we get clarification on the exact schedules, but schedules are a complete mess right now. Right after we get done with this, I have to go down to the Tribune, and usually we have 2 to 5 games going on locally on a Monday night. We have 13 because of all the reschedules and teams just trying to get all their games in before district start. So it'll be a crazy night. But Lewiston Wrestling did have the North Idaho Rumble. So now it's time to talk about the Royal Rumble. And that's why we're going to bring in our guest real quick to talk about it. And then he's going to be our judge for the sports-related draft. And his camera is very close up. So I apologize. Anybody, this is not a jump scare. I'm giving you full warning of the jump scare. But go to old David Doofenberg over here.
That is I.
It is him. We just got to get into it because Robert hasn't watched the full Rumble yet. And he was mad because I spoiled the 2 Rumble matches in our notes. He had plenty of time.
You spoiled the last 3 matches. I got to watch the women's match. So I did. That's okay.
Sorry. But your overall thoughts on the Royal Rumble?
It was very there.
Yes.
It was like it's the event I look forward to the most each year. And even at the end of it, I was just like, that was it. Okay.
There's been many years, and you and I always get overly hyped for the Rumble, and we go back and watch all the old Rumbles, and
Yeah.
we just get into it. There's so many Rumbles that even on a second or third watch through that I'm going, crap, we're on number 22 already?
Yeah.
Because it goes by so quick, and it's booked so well and so evenly. In both Rumbles this year, both the men's and the women's, I was like, we're only on 12?
Yeah.
It was like, why? It's just because usually they sprinkle in all these story bits throughout, and they just weren't there. We could blame Vince and his 20 story changes the week of for the Rumble, and some of the rumors you hear about how wrestlers would get the script for what was going on in the Rumble, and then an hour later it was completely different.
Yeah.
There were people that showed up to be a part of the Rumble that ended up not being in the Rumble, and just thrown together things. Winners rumoredly had been changed throughout, but
Or it was supposed to be Riddle.
yeah, it's just it's a mess. It's really disappointing, and maybe people would be happier if Riddle ended up being the winner, so it wasn't too part-time stuff. But
Yeah.
to me, I don't mind Ronda Rousey being the women's Royal Rumble winner. I think she's a huge draw for that company, and they needed that spark right now. Very glad that Sasha's healthy again. We're getting Asuka and Bayley and Alexa Bliss all back here soon, so the women's division can be, bulked up and decent again. It's kind of struggled just because they got hit with injuries and then they fired everyone else.
Yeah.
And then try to figure out why they couldn't have women's divisions with 7 women.
I liked both winners, but there was nothing that happened other than that. Like there's usually maybe 2 or 3 stories. You'd be like, oh, that could happen. And you're just like, okay, those 2 won. Those are the 2 matches. What else happened?
Yeah. What was crazy is I've gotten back into it since I think we watched it at your place, Doof. It happened to be Royal Rumble 2 years ago, and it was a little rough, and so that's when I've gotten back in. And as I sat down last night, we got home from bowling. I sat down to eat dinner really quick, and the wife actually sat down and watched the women's side, and she was shocked, and she was able to say, "Oh, well, look, the Bella Twins," and so I think she's kind of drawn back in, but maybe it's just the pay-per-views. But what can we do to get the drawback? I mean, there's got to be something to get the drawback for these guys.
Stop having Vince McMahon change the script 20 times in a week.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife likes the reality shows too. Like, and she gets to watching them when they're in the ring, but they haven't really done that. Obviously, probably because of COVID and stuff.
Yeah, and she's a Miz and Mrs. fan. She loves watching the Miz.
So funny.
And that's why she kind of was intrigued with it, and that's actually about where we're at, and she's kind of excited. We're trying to finish watch the Rumble tonight after the show's done. So,
even my wife agreed that Maurice was the only reason to really watch the other night, because she didn't disappoint just by showing up.
So going through the rest of the Rumble for anybody that missed it and don't care about being spoiled, Seth Rollins defeats Roman Reigns by DQ. I have to say, that's my favorite match of the night. I know it was a DQ in a Big 4 pay-per-view, and a lot of people cried about it.
Yeah.
But storyline-wise and storytelling-wise, that match was fantastic all the way through. The whole plot is Seth Rollins has never lost to Roman Reigns in a big match, and he's like this master manipulator and this great mind games guy. I loved how I forget who said it, but they almost called him the cerebral assassin because he's kind of been a smaller version of a Triple H in a way with his career, but they called him the cerebral something else instead. But just coming out in the old Shield theme music and his old Shield gear and kind of getting ahead of Roman and just pushing him over the top. So good. That match was so good. I thought Becky Lynch and Doudrop was fine. For how little that they've pushed Doudrop, and the fact that she's still called Doudrop instead of Piper Niven, which still drives me absolutely nuts. But give her full credit for just running with the name, even though it is horrible.
Yeah.
That match was very, very good. Kind of your classic big heel, normal sized babyface deal, but it reminded me a lot of old Bret Hart matches with the way they try to set some of that stuff up.
And I heard the WrestleMania sign catching fire kind of distracted people.
That's true. That anybody that's not seen that, the WrestleMania sign, which every other entrant is required by law to point at, has fireworks built into it. So when a Royal Rumble winner wins their match and they point at the WrestleMania sign, it goes nuts. with all the pyro and stuff. Well, Ronda Rousey did that, and it caught fire. So then during the next match, they had to bring the entire sign down. They had to clear out this giant section of fans so they could take it out. And then Brock Lesnar wins the Rumble, and he points to the sign, and they set off the other fireworks, which lit it on fire again. Because, I don't know. But no, overall, I know a lot of people were really, really, really down on this Rumble. To me, it was just there, which is very disappointing. But I don't think there was nothing horrible about it. But I think David nailed it. It was just there.
Yeah, it was like getting your favorite steak and they forget the seasoning.
And honestly, it's going to be a bad Rumble. And sorry, spoilers, Robert, for this match you're about to watch. But when Kofi doesn't hit his spot, you just know it's a cursed Rumble.
Yeah.
Danhausen showed up on AEW, and the WWE Royal Rumble was cursed. If anybody gets that reference, I'm just learning this reference. I have went down a Danhausen rabbit hole after he debuted on AEW. I'm like, what the heck is this person? And I'm now a fan of Danhausen.
At least he owns it.
Yeah, and as long as he doesn't go out there and make some huge dude sell his fake move, like he's my size. It's like at least he understands the gimmick of it and he just has fun with it. But all right, let's get into it. Sports related draft. We were going to do it last week, but we were going to pre-record this section and throw it on there, and we just never did. I think partially because David and I were very salty about how we got eliminated from the bowling league. So we didn't want to do anything fun.
I gotta go now.
Yeah, right. But we also had Denny Grubb on, and we lasted an hour with him. Full Broadway, if you would, for the wrestling folks out there. So we just didn't have time to do it. So best Royal Rumble eliminations of all time. Again, that's the best part of the Royal Rumble. It's like, yes, we want to know who wins, but that's just one part of it. The match is almost an hour long every time, and you have to fill that in with different storylines throughout it. And part of it is the creative eliminations that they do. There's 29 of them in every match. So which one stuck out? I'm the one that came up with it. So Robert got the first pick, and I have to say there was one clear number one, and I was really, really hoping you were going to skip it.
No way. I mean, for me, it was all about Drew McIntyre. I think he's probably my favorite wrestler right now. Kind of excited to see how his journey has changed over a little bit. But I had to go to Drew McIntyre with Brock Lesnar, and so that was his way out. For me, it just I'm getting back into it after a few years off. I mean, so I missed the Shield time when Roman was with Seth Rollins. So I'm having to go back and reference all these and relearn it. But yeah, for me, that was a no-brainer. It was Drew McIntyre and that one.
A lot of people say 1992 is the best Royal Rumble. 97 gets a lot of love now. Like 2006 or 2007, Doof, that really gets a lot of love lately.
The Undertaker one?
Yeah, Undertaker and Shawn.
Yeah, because that one was just main eventers galore.
That gets a lot of love. 2020 is my favorite Royal Rumble now of all time. Mm-hmm. And the first half of it's all Lesnar. Lesnar just chucking dudes. He eliminates 13 people, 12 or 13 people. Most of them just one by one. There's a couple times it gets stacked up with two people in there, and he tosses them both out. But the moment McIntyre comes out, and Lesnar gets low blowed, and then McIntyre gives the big kick, and out he goes. That place went absolutely ballistic, and it just shows what an elimination can do. And then it only gets topped because of Edge's surprise return. And again, the whole Rumble is so good.
Yeah.
All right, my pick.
Oprah crowd.
Yeah, my pick. Since you took the obvious number one, so I knew I have to play catch up, but I had to take the easy number two. And there's the backstory here with David of watching this live and losing our minds with our buddy Jeff and going nuts with it. But that's Maven eliminating The Undertaker in 2002. If anybody that doesn't know, which I don't think Robert does know, Maven was the winner of the first ever Tough Enough competition, which was kind of their first reality show of who's going to be the next superstar. Maven wins it, and then like a month later just gets thrown in to the Royal Rumble. Undertaker is dealing with the Hardy Boys and Lita not paying attention. And Maven just comes up from behind, drop kicks him, out he goes. And the reason why this is my second favorite elimination ever is Undertaker's reaction to it. That slow turn, and the stare, and then Maven's realization of, I've eliminated the Undertaker, but I've eliminated the Undertaker, and now he's going to murder me, which then he did, and threw him through the popcorn stand and stuff. Again, the whole point of great eliminations is there's a lot of people that remember Maven eliminating the Undertaker. More people remember Maven eliminating the Undertaker than who won that Royal Rumble.
Yeah.
If you say 2002 Royal Rumble, they're going to say this elimination before they say who won the Rumble. Which, Robert, do you even have any idea who won that Rumble?
I don't, because that was after we had already left. But I stopped watching right about the time Maven and them was starting that, and so I remember hearing the name then. But that's about where I kind of went off and didn't follow much.
So. By the way, 2002 Royal Rumble up there in my top 3 Rumbles of all time, partially because of the eliminations, partially because of the Triple H story of coming back from the quad, and Triple H is the one that ends up.
Like what made it good for us is because we'd always make crazy predictions during the Rumble, like Goldust is going to win, Spike Dudley is going to eliminate Big Show. And then our friend Jeff said, Maven's going to eliminate the Undertaker, and 45 seconds later it happens.
It's so great. All right, sir. Round number 2. What do you got?
Well, Doof just said it a minute ago, and it's just because he was really the guide that was the immovable object when I was starting to fade out a little bit. You had I'm drawing a blank, the Great Khali there, but it was the Great Khali and it was Big Show. I mean, those guys were the guys when I was starting to get out, and so it was just before Chris Benoit. It was the year before Benoit died, and so I think watching Benoit eliminate Big Show, I think that's got to be up there easily in the top 5, easily the top 2 for me to watch him get eliminated.
Yeah, this is where I knew I won. Seeing you put this on here. Yes, Benoit, you're lasting for number 1, winning the Rumble, eliminating the Big Show. Cool story. Whatever. Not even taking into account what Chris Benoit did a couple years later. It was Eddie Guerrero that died the next year. And then you had the whole Rey Mysterio stuff. Right. Just to clean it up a little bit. But not even to take account of what Benoit did as a monster later, because I will admit I loved Chris Benoit in the ring. And it's still very hard to watch his matches and then not think of him killing his wife and his kid and himself and all that. But it's not even that great of an elimination. It's a cool moment of him winning. But you'll notice with my list, I don't pick an elimination that won a Rumble, because that's not what makes a great elimination. That's the ending of a match. So my second pick is, again, one of those eliminations that I will always remember. I can see it clearly in my head. And it's with 2 people that most people just go, huh? Why? Gene Snitsky eliminating Paul London in the 2005 Royal Rumble, where he basically just picks him up, sets him on the apron. London ducks the first clothesline and wishes he didn't, because he turns around and takes another clothesline and basically does a backflip off the apron, barely clears his head on the way around and lands flat on the floor. And just the surprise of everybody. Again, it's a Snitsky and Paul London moment where most people don't even know who those 2 are. But it's one of those deals that absolutely made that Rumble. It was so good. It's so fantastic to watch, and that's why it's my number 2. Doof, what do you think of those 2 eliminations?
Topped our list before 2020.
Yeah. What do you think of those 2 selections, sir?
So far, thoroughly enjoy the list. I did lose my mind when Benoit eliminated Big Show at that time. And of course, because I remember hearing, Batista and John Cena, they both fell in the ring at the same time. So I watched the Rumble finally. And I was like, nobody told me that Paul London pretty much died. And
yeah, that Rumble,
job with the 2.
Rumble is absolutely fantastic, partially because of I almost put my favorite eliminations were the 2 quads that used to be connected to Vince McMahon. That also happened that year. All right, last one.
Well, I have to chime in. I actually watched the interview where Paul London was interviewed about that hit, and it was crazy for him to relive it and talk about it. So if you have a chance, watch it, Google it. On YouTube, it's awesome. But Randy, you hit on it a minute ago, and it was all you talked about Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. So for me, round 3 has got to be Rey winning after Eddie Guerrero passes away, where he eliminates Randy Orton in 2006. A lot was going on with that one.
Just picking out winners. It's just boring. I'm going to go back to the second best Royal Rumble of all time, 2002. Maybe the third best, because 2005 is up there as well. That's tough. 2020 is the winner. But
you said 96. You've said 90.
No, I've said what other people say. No, I've said what other. Go back and listen. I said what other people say is the best Rumble. 92,
it's wrestling.
97.
You can change your story at any time.
Absolutely. 2020 is my favorite Rumble of all time. Before that, it was a mix of 2002 and 2005. You can go look up Work Shoot Alliance on YouTube if you want to watch Doof and I rank our Rumbles from a couple years ago. If we ever brought that show back and did it today, it would be completely a different list. And we watch them every year, and our opinions change. But I'm going to go back to 2002 for my favorite comical elimination of all time. So, again, I talked about the story. Triple H coming back from the torn quad. Coming back, this is his first match back. He had that big Madison Square Garden return, but he hadn't had a match. Maybe he had a singles match on a Raw just to get things worked out again. I don't think so, though. In the ring was Steve Austin. The 2-man power trip was what their stable was before the torn quad happened. They're back in the ring for the first time together since that happened. They're having this big stare down, just waiting for one of them to throw that first punch. And then the hurricane music plays. And he's the next entrant. He comes on down, and he just stands between the two of them and grabs one neck and grabs another neck. And he's going to double choke slam Triple H and Austin. And they just kind of look at each other and like, what the hell is this? They each just grab with one hand, toss him out. The greatest thing. It's so funny. It's my favorite, like comedy-wise. And that's another great elimination style in the Rumble. It's just the comedy ones. And that one by far. It's like Ivory in the Women's Rumble on Saturday night. It's going to be remembered because of how funny it was. And
Edge and Gilbert.
Edge and Gilbert was great. All right. So Robert has Drew McIntyre eliminating Brock Lesnar in 2020. He has Benoit winning it in 2004 and Mysterio winning in 2006. I have Maven taking out the Undertaker in 2002. Snitsky flipping out London in 2005. And Triple H and Steve Austin eliminating the Hurricane in 2002. Dave, give us your thoughts on both of our lists and then give us a winner.
I enjoy Robert's list because out of Rumble wins, I think personally those are two of my favorite too. Also, Randy, though, has the funnest eliminations, I would say, in history, except for when Shawn Michaels eliminated Vader and Yokozuna at the same time because wrestling.
But then R-Truth did that same thing.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. Wasn't it
Big Show and Mark
Henry? Yeah. I totally forgot about that.
Is there any of these moments that didn't make the list that sticks in your mind?
I always enjoyed Beth Phoenix eliminating Great Khali because that was in 2010, and also personally hearing that Alex Riley was not supposed to fall out of the ring into 2011 when he did, and you see John Cena's face of just like, what are we going to do now? Because he should be in this ring still. Yeah,
if anybody doesn't know, Alex Riley was actually supposed to eliminate John Cena. Like, the Miz was going to distract him, and Riley was going to get this big elimination to set up the Cena-Miz match at the Rumble. And then all of a sudden, Alex Riley just slipped off the top rope. It didn't even look like anybody was pushing him in at that time. He just slipped off because, the ropes get sweaty. And down he goes, and Cena just looks at the ref like,
like they played it off well because real time it made us, because they had the Miz come and eliminate him, so it seemed like it was supposed to happen. But then you hear back and you watch it and you see the reaction, like, guys, this is about 20 minutes too early.
All right, but who wins, sir?
Overall, this is going to be a repeat of when Becky came in and stole the entrant and took Robert's win away. So I think in this situation, Randy is Becky Lynch and Robert is Charlotte. And Randy gets the dub.
Get the belt. That's 3 wins in a row. But technically 4. If you look at our comment section for the best college football coaches of all time? Everyone in the comments said me. So this is 4 straight wins. It's 4. If you listen to a 4-year-old, it's 1 straight win because, of course, Addie took Robert. But I win again. I knew I was going to win this one. I know my rumbles, but
I just had to pour salt in the wound of that because that was enjoyable to watch.
There was a couple others that I want to throw out there, but I could have easily taken Rikishi over Too Cool. That was always
a fun one.
That was a fun one. Maybe I should have went fun instead. How about Undertaker and Goldberg? That was when just about the time I was leaving out. That was a good one too.
Fun.
So
Eliminations are all about fun.
Sid eliminating Hogan because that changed the face of wrestling forever right there.
Yeah.
Or point. Hogan eliminating Sid with the help of Ric Flair.
Oh yeah. The babyface heel.
All right, David, thank you so much for hanging out with us and picking the correct winner. I will see you on Sunday when we defeat the NFC in our Bowling League Pro Bowl, sir.
Pro Bowl.
All right. That's all right, David Doofenberg.
Thanks, Doof.
Yeah, we knew we had to get him on for our wrestling list. I win again. I'm on a roll. I'm very streaky right now. You can't hang with me right now. It'll be your turn to make the list for next Monday. But we have 5 minutes left in the show. So the sports that don't get enough airtime don't get enough airtime. I'm just going to ask you real quick your thoughts on Rafa Nadal winning his 21st Grand Slam.
It's just crazy to think that an individual has done that, and so hats off to him. I haven't watched any highlights of his match. I did watch him walk onto the court there in his semifinal match. He looked like he was ready to go. It looked like he was so focused that nothing was going to get in his way.
Yeah, loses the first 2 sets, comes back. I believe the 7th time in Grand Slam finals history that a player went down 2-0 and came back and win. That number might be a little bit off, but just ridiculous. Yeah. Is the storyline compelling at all of Nadal, Federer, and Djokovic? Basically, they were in a 3-way tie at 20, and finally one of them was able to get that 21st. Is that story compelling to you as not a full-time tennis fan at all?
Yeah, I just don't follow it near as much as I used to anymore. I mean, I think I lost a lot of interest once Agassi and Chang and all those guys quit. But that was also in the early 90s when I was following it so much with Larry McConnell when I was playing tennis. So I think that for me changes. So,
and then in bowling, PBA Players Championship, Jason Belmonte won his 14th major championship, defeating Sean Rash and exclaiming he is back, which was very cool.
Yeah,
to see, and the rest of we just don't got enough time. Give me two this week in sports histories. We got 3 minutes.
Boy, I only have 3 on there for the events, but I've got birthdays and all that.
We'll skip the birthdays and deaths. Just give me the events.
So how 1963 Major League Rules Committee votes to expand the strike zone. And then how about 1967, the New Orleans Saints make their first pick in the draft, and they draft a kicker.
Hey, the kicker worked out pretty dang well for Cincinnati. Evan McPherson all day
long. All right, here's your trivia question, sir. You probably should have kept Doof on there. And I did. Yeah, and I did tell you it was I gave you a hint because there was only 3 events. So your event, and I gave it to start. 1963 Major League Rules Committee expanded the strike zone.
Okay.
How many times have they changed the rule since then?
Officially, or umpires changing the rules?
Officially. How many times have they changed the strike zone since 1963?
I'll say officially 5 times, but unofficially 573 times a week.
They've only changed it 3 times. Last time was in 1996, in 1963. So the bonus part is to the other side of that. How many times?
Haven was closer.
Yeah. How many times have they actually made changes to the strike zone?
None.
Since its inception.
None. No times.
13. And what's funny is when I was doing the research was when they first started playing baseball, the batter had to tell the pitcher what to throw, either high, low, or mid. Yes. I research it. Have fun with it. I'll send you the
They
link.
didn't even need a trash can to know what they were throwing. That's great.
Exactly.
All right, that is going to do it for the Monday version of the R&R Sports Report. I have to say, as far as the numbers are showing in my upper left corner, maybe we just stay on Mondays. I think this is the most popular as far as people sticking around the whole show. Maybe people turned us on and left. That's highly possible as well. But that number is the highest I've seen in a while, partially because of our guests. Again, thank you so much to Kevin Driscoll and Doug Lemanian, the two principals of Lewiston and Clarkston High Schools. Thank you to Alisha Alexander for hanging out with us talking LC sports. And of course, thank you to David Doofenberg for being the best Royal Rumble judge we could ask for and picking the correct winner. The winning streak continues. I want to thank Eric and Haven and Denny and Mike and Haley and Kevin for all commenting throughout the show. It always makes the show even more entertaining. I know we didn't interact with you guys as much this time as in weeks past, but when you have guests on, you try not to convolute the two, but we do very much appreciate the interactions. And a couple of you made me chuckle, especially Denny Garub, talking about the Highland Huskies and asking if Highland's really in Idaho, and that was fun. But again, thank you so much. We will be back next week, Monday night, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. And then if you're listening on KLCZ, hopefully you can hear us on a Tuesday as well. But for now, that's Robert. I'm Randy. He just messaged me that the Olympics are starting. Nobody cares. Go curling! But for
exactly
now,
right.
Yeah, we